Well, hello, freedom seekers. We're going to just chat for a few minutes. If you are watching the video on this and you don't want to just kind of watch me jibber jabber a little bit, then while people come online with me to join me, then you can fast forward to about minute 6, and that's generally when I kind of can stop jibber jabbering a little bit and get on with the whole program. In tonight's program, we're going to be talking about how to build trust in relationships, and I think it's a very critical part of relationships. But a lot of people really lack the trust, and if you don't have trust, then it's very difficult to be able to move a relationship in the direction of having an ethical and consensual non-monogamous life that you dream to have for you and also for your partner. And so trust is so critical in this process of liberation so that you can liberate your life sexually and you can liberate your relationship. And in liberating your relationship, that means that we realize that we're not owning people anymore. This is not a life of slavery and a life of dictatorship where, we have someone that owns us, that we are responsible to make sure that we keep them happier than we keep ourselves. And so that's the whole idea of liberating your relationship. It's not getting rid of your relationship. It's just living a relationship where the two of you are able to thrive as free, independent, liberated human beings that then come together, and you bring each of your strengths together instead of your weaknesses together. You bring your strengths together and become, much more as an entity where it's the two of you, but it's not a we or an us, like I've described before, because you keep your I and you keep your me. Whereas in so many relationships, what we learn from monogamy, it's all about the we and the us. And we really stress that you've got to maintain as a priority above the we and the us has got to be you. It's got to be the I and the me has got to come before the we and the us. And if you don't do that, then what happens is that in so many monogamous relationships, you end up sacrificing yourselves and becoming less instead of more. And we really want to help you to have a life that is more of all the things that you find that give you satisfaction and pleasure. And so we want you to have more in life and not less in life, and we want you to give more in life as well, and that's giving to your relationships and giving to the world, and giving to the work that you do. And when you are not feeling like you have pretty well died to yourself or sacrificed yourself, and then you're actually thriving and you're growing and you're becoming more yourself, then you can give more. You have more to give. It's part of the very important developmental process in life. And in so many relationships that we lose track of that because it becomes all about the we and the us, and you lose track of really having the more that you want in your own life. And so we're kind of helping that to get back on track with people who want to liberate themselves and having an ethically and consensually non-monogamous relationship so that they can have more sex with more people more often and still have wonderful, wonderful relationships with your partner, or with your two partners or three partners, or however many partners that you want to choose and have in your life. They can all be very different relationships, but they can all add so much more to your life. And so that's really where we're coming here every week and talking about how you can have more and live a liberated life. And now liberated doesn't mean though that you don't have relationships, because that's what we're really talking about tonight. Then is how to build trust in relationships. Why would we be talking about how to build trust in relationships if relationships just weren't important? But the thing is that monogamy teaches us, and our mononormative culture and society teaches us to put the the relationship before yourself. Put the relationship first. And we just think that really brings out the worst in people and doesn't bring out the best in people. And what brings out the best in people is when people live a life where they are living a little bit selfishly. And so that'll be a subject for another time about going into a deep dive on selfishness, which tonight is on trust and talking about trust. And so, anyway, I've had a lot of fun here in the last couple of weeks making chocolate. And before we get rolling here, just to kind of show you, that's just one pan of chocolate that we have. Who's got the gold bar, right? We've kind of got that all. That's our dark chocolate pan, and then we have also here we have a tin of chocolate that's our milk chocolate, but it's a dark milk chocolate. Our dark chocolate that is not milk chocolate, but are just pure dark chocolate, that's 77% chocolate. And this is about 53% chocolate. And then we also have dark chocolate that's milk chocolate, dark milk chocolate, that we ran out of the gold wrappers. So we just had to wrap it up in foil. And we've got some more wrapping yet to do tonight yet. And then the chocolate making will be completed. We have, somewhere, if we were to sell this at the pricing that the chocolate makers typically sell their chocolate for, we got somewhere between $700 and $1,000 worth of chocolate that we have made, where we started out making chocolate from the bean. And we've made some videos on that, and I keep posting about to an average of one every Wednesday and one every Friday, so 2 a week, in the steps and the processes that we've gone through for making chocolate. So be sure to check that out. And so now we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's program and the topic in the weekly wrap-up video report. And so let's go there. And I'm going to share. Oh, I see. I clicked on the wrong button. There we go. Okay, here we are now. And so this is the weekly wrap-up video report. I come here every Monday evening between 8 and 8:30 p.m. on Pacific Coast time. And the weekly wrap-up video report really is talking about the transitions in our lives so that we can thrive in living an ECNM, that's ethical and consensual non-monogamous life, that you create and that you love the most. And it's a life then that where you have more sex with more people more often, and you're creating what we call a magnetic elf life. And elf life stands for easy, liberated, and fun. And why would you want to create anything else? But yet, I'll be honest with you, for so many years, I even told my partners when I'd get into relationships as well, life isn't always fun and life isn't always easy. It can be pretty hard with me sometimes because of just I made it. I'd created it that way. And I didn't even realize it because I didn't know so many of these things that I teach to my audience here now. I didn't know these things. Nobody taught them to me. And, I was taught that life is supposed to be hard. I mean, it's supposed to be hard work in a relationship, and you're supposed to work hard to succeed and all these things, But then, I started to realize that the people who really thrive in life, they don't constantly be having a hard life. And so that's where this idea of creating a magnetic elf, easy, liberated, and fun life came from. And then I started learning about the magnetic energy that we have in our life. And that magnetic energy is something that I start to teach more and more about now. But here's a little self-test for you. And that is, with this whole idea of your magnetic energy, we all have magnetic energy within us. And that magnetic energy is to pull us in the direction of the things that bring us more satisfaction and more pleasure in our life. And like a magnet would, push away the people, the things, and the opportunities which take away from the satisfaction and pleasure in our life. And so when you go through your day, hour by hour, day by day, and week by week, you know, a little self-test is just to ask you yourself, whatever you're involved in doing at that time, is this increasing the satisfaction and pleasure in your life? And if it is, then that's kind of like you're setting your compass in the right direction then of getting where you want to go. But if on the other hand, your answer comes back that no, this is not increasing the satisfaction and pleasure in my life, then it's like your compass is turning you in the wrong direction and you needed a little course correction. And that's where I started to learn about, instead of creating a life that was hard and it wasn't always fun, and I that's what I communicated to people. And so I really learned a lot in my non-monogamous life because all these changes that I have gone through have come to me in the last 13 years. And 13 years ago, that my wife and I opened our marriage and went from a 27-year monogamous marriage, and we started living our non-monogamous life. And she is no longer living, and I continue living my non-monogamous life. And and so, I really prefer living my life easy, liberated, and fun. And so that's what I'm here to help you to do. And this weekly wrap-up video report every week I do in order to help you to thrive and to keep your compass turned in that direction where you are able to have more sex with more people more often. You live a magnetic elf life, and it's a life that's going to constantly give you more satisfaction and more pleasure. And have lived a life where sexually I've been having more satisfaction and pleasure in the last 13 years than I did in the 27 years of my monogamous marriage before that. And before my wife and I opened our marriage. In fact, before she passed away, she had more sexual satisfaction and pleasure in her life, and than she ever did in our 27 years of monogamy as well. And so we want to help you to share in that kind of a life and enjoy that life as well, where you can have more sex and more with more people more often and increase the level of satisfaction and pleasure in your life. And so we're going to go on then talking about because in part of what I'm doing right now is I'm no longer transitioning to a like a non-monogamous life. I'm living my non-monogamous life, and in fact, I'm here tonight with my girlfriend in Seattle, where I've been staying here with her for the last couple of months, and tomorrow morning I leave for Ventura, California, where I'll be with my girlfriend in Ventura, California, and be staying with her. And and so I'm living my non-monogamous life, and I just want to help you to be able to get the same level and degree of satisfaction and pleasure out of life that I'm enjoying. And I found that there's three elements that it takes to do that. And the first element is really the sex and how that impacts the relationships in your life. The second element is the wealth and how that impacts your work that you're doing. And the third element is your health and how that impacts, or your wellness and how it impacts your health. And so, my transition right now that I'm going through is transitioning my income, where I'm going from an income where it's like most people have, where they trade hours for dollars. And that means that they've got to be someplace where many people are remote workers these days, and it means they've still got to, be at a computer or at home somewhere, and they got to be working every day and trading hours for dollars. And I want to just create a livelihood and an income where I'm no longer in that model anymore, following that model, trading hours for dollars, and so I'm liberating myself financially. But the same steps that I'm going through are the steps that you need to go through yourself, and that, like we're talking about, trusting relationships. You see, because a trust is nothing more than a transaction. And trust, in the little equation I have here on the screen, trust makes it possible for you to have a transaction. Can I trust that if I give you blank, that I'll get blank? And that's really what trust comes right down to. It's a transaction. And so whether you're talking about transaction in work and business or relationships and sex, that it's about transaction. So the homework assignment that I've had for the last couple of weeks, and going to ask you, did you do this? Because yeah, the whole process of living a liberated life is not where you have one or two conversations with the people that you're in a relationship with. You have regular ongoing conversations. And so that's where the homework assignment here is, if you're in a relationship with someone that you're regularly having sex with, or if you're in a long-term committed relationship with someone that you're not regularly having sex with, but you're in a relationship, long-term committed relationship with them, maybe you only have sex once or twice a year, who knows? I know that. And but whatever your situation is, have two deep conversations this week with that person, and have those conversations that are based around the material that we're talking about, that we have talked about last week as well. Take some notes on last week's video, take some notes on tonight's video, and sit down and have at least two deep conversations. And it's all about trust. Now, if you're single and completely a free agent, and I'm single now, and I consider myself a free agent, in that if there's someone I want to date or someone I want to have sex with, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy that. And but yet I do have committed long-term relationships as well. And so if you're in that kind of a situation, but you don't have anybody that you're going to be having this conversation about trust with, then sit down with some friends, some people that and open up and start having this conversation about trust, so that you get comfortable having these conversations about trust. Because as the little stamp that's on this YouTube conversation, if you look at my channel, it says, without trust, there is no relationship. And that's true. And so you've got to be able to establish that trust before you can even get started and moving forward and having the kind of relationship that you want. And and so just to do a quick review of the material from last week, and first I mentioned is trust is a transaction. But then you want to always value the figure out what the value of that transaction is versus the value of the relationship. Because I reached a place in my monogamous marriage where I just simply said to myself, to me, it's more important. I value being able to have a lovely, wonderful sex life more than I value living sexually and not having the wonderful sex life that I wanted in the relationship that I was with. So it's really kind of like putting the value of my sex life above the value of the relationship, because I'd gone for 27 years in sexual misery. And it wasn't all miserable, but over the course of any given year, we never had 1 year where we could tell you that the good sex outweighed the bad sex. We didn't even have 1 month in our 27 years where we'd say the good sex outweighed the bad sex. And so, I finally reached a point that the sex just became too important for me to continue in that relationship if we couldn't change and make the relationship work, to be able to also for me to be able to enjoy the sex that I wanted to have in my life. And and so that took then going through a transition, and that took communication, talking, sit down, talking to my wife, and had to talk about trust, and that's an important step along the way here. And but so then the next point that I mentioned last week is that you don't want to sacrifice for yourself for the common good. That is, you want to set your stage for living a liberated life, and that takes place through ongoing conversations. That's why I'm talking about having these conversations every week, so you can keep things moving forward. And if your partner is willing to join you and have sex with other couples and other people with you, have threesomes and foursomes and fivesomes and orgies and gangbangs and all this kind of stuff, then that's wonderful. However, don't suggest that he or she joined you. Say, this is what I want to explore, and this is what I want to experience. Because if you suggest that I want to experience this together, and I meet guys that get hung up because they want to have their wife or girlfriend out there kind of exploring, experiencing it all first. or they want their husbands and boyfriends out there experiencing, exploring it all first, and knowing that basically it's a game people play. If they get hooked, then I'll be able to have the life then that I want, but I got to make sure they get hooked first. And so the thing is that's part of this monogamous bullshit where you sacrifice yourself. And so don't do that. Don't sacrifice yourself for the common good. And you set the stage for living the liberated life that you want by keeping the conversation going week after week and keep moving forward a little bit in having this conversation about various areas. Trust is just one conversation to be having, and sex and fantasies and desires and my true wants, and like wouldn't you want me to have the things that I want the most in my life? And if you're in a relationship with someone who loves you, then even if they feel very insecure, like, well, I'm just afraid you're going to leave me, or things like this, I mean, you might find someone you like to have sex with better. You might find someone that cooks better for you, or might find someone that cleans better for you. You might find someone that laughs at your jokes, and so whatever the situation is, but we all have insecurities, but let's not take our insecurities and make them hold us back. Let's look at our insecurities as our opportunities for growth, and same thing with our partners' insecurities as well. So the stronger the relationship, the stronger the trust, and vice versa. The stronger the trust, the stronger the relationship. So the two go hand in hand. And that's why it's so important then to have these conversations about trust with your partners, so that you can sit down and have this conversation about, what does trust mean to you, and some of the things that we've talked about in our videos, and make the notes and just whatever thoughts that it spurs for yourself, and sit down and have these conversations with your partners. And that's something that my wife and I did 15 years ago when we started the process of transitioning our monogamous marriage into living a non-monogamous life. So the next point then, the review from last week, the last point here is that a person must want to give, a person must want what you give for you to get what you want. That I'm trying to read it and it's just not working. So let me just explain it. So the idea is if you're trying to offer something, like when I went to my wife and I said that, well, I think, you should have sex with other people and I should have sex with other people. And you see, she didn't want what I was offering. For her to have sex with other people at that point in the stage of the game was just repulsive to her. And so you want to make sure that whatever you're offering in this transaction, that is something that person really wants. And so then when I started to sit down and realize that my wife didn't want to join me in this venture, and so what do I have to offer her? Well, she's often said that she just wished that she could have a year without sex at all and maybe sort some things out in her life sexually. And so suddenly it's like, well, maybe through non-monogamy, I can offer her that, and she can have that, and then I can have a situation where I can have sex with other women. And that became the transaction that worked. So I had to find out what she valued and then offer her. We worked out, how this transaction is going to work for both of us. And that took this process of communication and took a lot of trust. So that, because at first, she wanted to run. And so it took trust. And that's why we're talking tonight then about building trust. So let's move on with that then, and talking about how to build trust in a relationship. Now, there's some things about building trust that's misleading, and I want to go over these first. And that is that the idea that the majority is right. Monogamy, having relationships that are dependent on one another, or even how we become dependent upon our medical system, and that's a situation true. You got to trust your doctors and all this, I personally, I don't put a lot of trust in doctors. They're just ringing their cash register because of how the dependency model works. Same thing with going trading time for dollars. that's what we're all told to do, and that's what we do. We get a good education. I mean, I got a couple of degrees, and I built a couple businesses, and but even building my own businesses and contributing to my community, paying taxes, employing people, and volunteering not only time but dollars and products and merchandise and all kinds of things in my community. Guess what? It really did not give me what I was wanting to have. It just gave me this idea of dependency. And so these whole ideas, monogamy, dependency, trading time for dollars, wealth creation, education, being smart enough and being good enough, all these kinds of things, whereas what the majority says that we need to do, and that's what the majority does. The majority, that's a misleading factor involved in relationships. And so then the next point is trust must be earned before it's given. I cannot tell you how many people that I come across that have said that. The trust has to something has to be earned before it's given. Well, you see, but you have a personal energy then. Your personal energy, as I've mentioned quite often in my videos, is your personal energy is your words, your thoughts, and your feelings. And if you're having this idea that trust must be earned before it's given, then you are actually putting out this personal energy of distrust. And the universe will deliver to you more distrust in order to prove that you're right about not trusting people. You'll reap what you sow. And your energy, where your energy flows, your reality goes and it grows. And so if your energy is flowing to this idea that trust has to be earned, that's putting out an energy of distrust. And the universe is going to help you to reap that. And so I'll be talking a little more about that in a little bit here. But you're either right or you're wrong. And if you think you can, you can. It's kind of like you create your own reality. If you think you can't, if you think you cannot, you cannot, and you will not. And that's the thing with trust. If you think you cannot trust someone, then you cannot, and you will not. But if you think that you can, then you can, and you will. And that's how trust works. It's an energy that you put out. And either way, you're going to be right. And if you put out that energy of trust that I can, and I do, and I will trust, then that's what you're going to see that comes back to you. On the other hand, if those people who put out that energy that trust must be earned, that's putting out distrust. And that's what they get, is they get oftentimes much more distrust. Sure, we all get people that come around that we end up trusting, but you live a life that you're always distrusting. And so then another misleading part about trust in relationships is that there can be only one and only. That's a scarcity model. It's less, not more. I mean, less. I again have people that I talk with in monogamous relationships, and it's like, well, if this relationship ends, then I may never have another good relationship. And that's again because you believe in the scarcity model, less, not more. And so you can be the one and you can find the one. And going on, then you must always be right. How many in this, it likes to come out that guys are really good on this. They got to always be right. But in reality, it's just as prevalent with women as it is with guys. And just it's a different way they kind of go around it. But yes, they've always got to be right too. There's these people. I mean, not everybody, but there are people who always feel like they've got to be right, and that doesn't build good relationships. And I learned that many years ago, and I started to realize, that I oftentimes have conversations and say, well, I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be shown that I am wrong, because I'd love to learn that I am wrong, and that way I can know better information and better ways to do things. And when you live that kind of an energy that you put out there, then it's really keeping you moving and forward in your life and progressing and advancing, because You're saying that I'm not perfect, but you know what? I don't have to be perfect to keep growing and keep learning new things. And so, if I'm not perfect, and if you see where I'm wrong with something, feel free to correct me or criticize me. I mean, don't be nasty or mean about it, but be constructive and be good about it. And so this whole idea that you can never show that you're wrong, because if I'm wrong, how many people in jobs learn that they're afraid to show that they're wrong? Because in our employment situation, most companies, you can't show that anything that's lacking confidence, and that, if you're wrong, then it's like, oh, that's someone's opportunity just to squish you. And it's such a terrible existence that we have out there in the world where you just can't be wrong. But the fact is, the greatest success is built on failure. The greatest life is built on failure. My non-monogamous life is built on failure. Because when I went to my wife at first and said that I think we should have sex with some other people, you should have sex with someone and I should have sex with someone, I mean, that didn't go over so well. And so I was like, okay, that didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board and see what will work. And we did find what worked. And that is how life works. That's how companies work. I mean, this whole thing that we're going through now with this coronavirus, there are different viewpoints and there are many different political positions right now because we got a presidential race going on and senatorial races and stuff. And all these different positions, everybody wants to be against each other. But the thing is that everybody's really trying to do the best that they know how to do and the best that they can think to do. And you can see, well, they're just wrong, and I'd like to say that too about people, but I'd lived my life that way for too many years, telling everybody in my religious days how wrong everybody was, and learned that that was me who was wrong. And the farther I went through life, the more I realized that, yeah, I was the one who was wrong. And not that I was wrong in everything in what I was thinking and doing. I was wrong in telling everybody else that they were wrong because they're just as right as I am. And so being wrong makes you vulnerable, which is bad. That's a misleading statement. I mean, when it comes to building relationships, that you can't be wrong in your relationship. I mean, Chris has got a brother that he's that way, and 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 his wife is on the phone probably once a week with Chris, and saying, "I just can't believe your brother," but he's I guess in that culture, and I don't want to stereotype anything right now, so I won't mention the culture or anything. But in that culture, there's this whole thing that comes along with this male image bit, and he just can't be wrong, and because you don't want to show your vulnerability. And so that's where the idea that failure is bad. It's not. That's misleading. It's a show of weakness leads to distrust. That's another false statement. A show of weakness leads to distrust. So let's go ahead and move on then to talking about some universal concepts, and just a couple short ones here. And that first universal concept is you must give to get. This kind of goes back to what I said a little bit ago, the energy that you put out. If you give out distrust, you're going to get distrust. If you give out trust, you're going to get trust. And what you give is what you get. And when you think about two people having sex to make a baby, does the woman get pregnant and they go off to the doctor to find out if they got a cat or a dog or a mouse or a guinea pig in there? No, they know they've got another human being. And same thing when I plant the seeds of an apple tree. Do I wonder if I'm going to get apple tree or a plum tree or a cherry tree or a banana tree? No, I know if I plant the seeds of an apple tree, I'm going to get apples. And so what you give is what you get. because you're planting those seeds and you're constantly planting seeds. And you can see that's going to be the next topic here. I'm going to talk more into that in a moment. And so you are a reflection of the sum of where and how your time is spent and who it is spent with. And now this is why it's so important to be in a home environment, because sometimes you can't always do a lot about the environment at work. Somebody else hired that person that works in your office with you that you just want to throttle them. But you can't do anything about that. And well, you can, and that is like what I'm doing is liberating myself financially, and next year I'm going to unveil a program so that any freedom seekers who are living an ethical and consensually non-monogamous life, it's going to be a criteria of mine. This is going to be a really I'm going to cherry pick people, but I want to help 1,000 people create financial liberation in their life by 2025. And it'll be just an amazing program. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But it'll be an amazing program. And so, that you are a reflection of the sum of where and how your time is spent and who it is that you spend it with. And so you may need to liberate yourself from some people. I've certainly had to do that. I had to do that here this past month, where I liberated myself from my sister. And so for you, maybe people you think, well, I can't walk away from family. Well, yeah, you can. Why not? You know, and you may need to even liberate yourself from a relationship that you're in. And so but again, I recently put out a video about a hike that Chris and I were on, and and then I've been talking to her that because she's monogamous with me, and with me spending time in California and spending time here, and with the whole thing that's going on right now, I'm not spending as much time here, and it's like I know that she can have a lot more, and she deserves a lot more satisfaction and pleasure in her life than what she's getting with me right now. And so that means that there's really some opportunities for her taking place. And I'm trying to encourage her, but she's only ever really known and done monogamy in her life, and so it's kind of like she's just kind of sorting things out there, and sometimes then that's where our relationships then need to sometimes be adjusted to give us the satisfaction and the pleasure that we deserve to have in our life. And and so that was certainly one of the things that I've evaluated, not only in my romantic relationships, but the friendships. The people that I spend time with as friends, who do I want to spend time with as friends? Well, and that's where then I decided that more and more of the friends that I spend time with would be the people that I'd be having sex with. And so it's like, if I'm going to go out and go hiking for a day with people, at the end of the day, I'd like to have sex with them instead of just at the end of the day have the end of the hike be over and everybody goes out maybe to dinner or go out for a beer or something, and then that's it. And so you can make it so that you can have and create the kind of enjoyment and the having more satisfaction, more pleasure in your life. And you just have to figure out then what is it that you need to do that. And so like for me then, yeah, if I'm going to, like, now I'm with COVID, I haven't been on a hike with other people for this whole year. But if I were out hiking, I'd be looking for people that I could go hiking with, that then, and we could have some sex at the end of the hike, or maybe during the hike. And 'cause I like to go hiking. And so this is where you have to define for yourself and start working for yourself, is the people that you spend time with, what kinds of things, what kind of people do you want to spend time with? And for me, then I moved in the direction when I started to liberate myself with my relationships and my sex life. I moved in the direction of being able to have more sex with more people more often and spend time with people that I could do that with. Then, well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about planting seeds here and get my page back in place here. But planting seeds. So the whole idea, this is part of these universal concepts that you sow what you reap. Sowing and reaping. What you sow, you shall reap. And if you plant an apple seed, like I mentioned, you're going to get an apple tree. If you, when you are constantly planting seeds through your own energy is your words, your thoughts, and your feelings. You're either planting seeds in yourself or you're planting seeds in someone else. And so you want to make sure that whatever seeds that you are planting, your words, your thoughts, and your feelings are going to give you what you want in return. And this is where it's like people who allow themselves, to get upset because someone did something they didn't particularly like, that they got all upset about it. But you can't control, you can't do anything about what that other person did or didn't do. And so it's like if you allow yourself then to just be all upset and you're going to be planting seeds that you don't want. You don't want more of those seeds, and yet you plant them anyway. And so this is where our energy, our personal thoughts and our feelings and our words are so important in that they are all, it's like planting seeds for the life that we're going to live tomorrow or the next day or the next day or the next day. And if you're not planting good seeds, you're not going to get good crops. And so this is with trust. Are you planting seeds of trust in the relationships that you want to build? Your word is your bond, and make sure. And so part of the seeds you're planting is make sure that you are doing what you say. And when you tell people that you're going to do something, make sure that you do it. And people who know me, though, they know that sometimes I'll say what I'm going to do, but it just takes me longer to get to do it than what I maybe estimate that it's going to take. And so that's something I'm working on, but yet they know that I don't just give up on it and turn away from it. I keep making progress until I do what it is that I said I'm going to do. And so your word is very important to you, and you want to make sure that you use your energy in a way where you're planting seeds through your feelings, your thoughts, and your words, that you're planting seeds that you want to grow and have an abundance of the things that you're planting. When you think of planting the seeds of any plant, you don't just go out there and get one stalk of celery from one seed. You get a whole abundance. Same thing with planting a apple seed tree. You don't get just one apple, you get an abundance. And so the whole universe out there points us in the direction of abundance, and yet we keep trying to point ourselves in the direction of scarcity. And this is just, again, something where I'm trying to plant seeds in your mind and helping you to really see the abundance that we have in this universe. It's just amazing. Don't get caught up in the fact of your own personal, maybe, fact that you're not having the abundance that you want. Just a moment. Some of us have bills to pay, and we kind of struggle there a little bit, what have you. But yet there is so much abundance all over and all around us that we are all participating in the abundance of the world around us. And so you can be understanding that you're part of that abundance. So let's talk about then the characters, the kinds of character that seeds build or destroy trust. These things will either help you to build trust in your relationships or they'll help you to destroy it. First thing is honesty. And this is where, yeah, I could have cheated on my wife, but it just, I value honesty so much that it just wasn't in me to do that. Now, I know that there are a lot of men and women out there that are living unethical and non-consensual, non-monogamous lives, because they're basically cheating. And sometimes they don't even start out thinking they're going to cheat, but it just happens. And sometimes it happens and then they get to feeling really bad about it. And then they don't do it for a while, but then after a while they do it again. All kinds of different things. And And this is part of then where if you take and value honesty higher than that sex that you would be having, then you're going to sit down and have conversations. They're going to allow you to share your thoughts, your feelings, and your words. Share your energy with the people that you have a relationship with, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, the people you have that relationship with, and just open up honestly in sharing. Now, I'm not necessarily saying, because every situation is different. I'm not necessarily saying that if you've been cheating to go ahead and go tell your spouse that. For some people that's the right thing to do, and some people it's the wrong thing to do. It's just better to leave that, let old dogs lie, but move forward in a new era of honesty in your life. And so, with that though, then that's where having these conversations every week with your partner about trust is a good place to start. And this whole idea of your words, your thoughts, and your feelings, and you plant the seeds that you want, and you could talk to your partner about that. Are we planting the seeds of what we want, and then what is it that we want? Well, I personally, I really enjoy having sex with more people. And I'm just being honest with you. It's kind of like, and I think it'd be hot if you'd like to do that too, but I can't speak for you. I can only speak for what I want, and hopefully then you can speak for what you want, and have these conversations. So another character is reliability. Are you reliable? And consistency goes along with that, closely matched to it as well. Are you consistently reliable? And predictability, that's down at the bottom here. Someone that is people can count on you. This is the idea of reliability and consistency. These things build trust, or they can destroy trust. There was a time that in my early part of my relationship with Chris, I had developed a really bad habit of just always being late, and never really knowing what time, because I didn't live with Chris at the time. She didn't live with me, and it was like could never be sure when Mark might show up. And he may be 5 minutes late, he may be an hour late. And I just then started to realize, well, actually, it was Chris's teenage daughter that brought this to my attention, that I was consistently unreliable. And that's not what I wanted. And that could break down trust. And certainly it was breaking down the trust with Chris's daughter. And I didn't want that. And so I kind of straightened up my act on that a little bit. And it's something that I continue to always work on, because I kind of slide a little bit and then try to pull myself back to where I'm timely and things of this nature. And so it's just one of those things that I work on it. But then because I'm honest about it, and I'm not there sitting there, trying to think, well, I'm right. You can't show me where I'm wrong. I don't have my ego sitting out there that I'm worried about getting it bruised or damaged, and and so because of that, then I I'm never in a place where somebody is really overly upset at me because I was maybe a little late and not on time. But it's something I've worked on. I've straightened out a lot. But yeah, you want to be reliable and you want to be consistent. Now, confidence is another thing. You can either just build trust with confidence, or you can destroy trust with confidence. You can build trust with confidence because it's the wrong kind of confidence. It's the kind of confidence that says, "Oh, I can't be wrong," you know, "I can't fail," and all these kinds of things. That kind of confidence, or macho confidence and stuff, that does not build trust. It builds distrust. And so there's a kind of confidence, though, where people know that things, that your energy, going back to your energy, your words, your thoughts, and your feelings all mean something. And that is what to base your confidence on. Is the fact that your words, your thoughts, and your feelings all mean something. Which goes on right in with the next thing, and that is being authentic, being true to yourself, or are you going to be fake or false? Yeah, I lived a life for a long time back in my religious days. I wasn't authentic, wasn't being true to myself, you know, and and I felt it. I felt, internally inside, I knew that things weren't the. So this idea that test, is this giving you more satisfaction and pleasure, or does it seem to be taking away from your satisfaction and pleasure? But you see that in those days, then it was like I was taught that I need to sacrifice my satisfaction and pleasure. And the idea of having satisfaction and pleasure was selfish and it was wrong. Boy, was I taught a lot of a lot of wrong stuff. you know, but it's from all that the way I live my life, from the way that I was taught about things, then where now it's just so polar opposite that I'm able to take now and create trainings and teachings and programs and tell you about these things so that you don't have to experience the same things that I have. And that's where this whole idea that I came to, I'm a very cognitive person, and it came to me where what's the basis of all of this is living a liberated life, sexual liberation, financial liberation, and liberation with your health and wellness. So you're not dependent. And so for me, then it came down to really being true to myself and no longer living a fake or a false life and just being authentic. And that builds trust when you're authentic. Even in people that don't like, people that I mean, I have people that I'm working with in business, doing some business things right now, that I have a tremendous amount of respect from them and trust from them because I don't hide the fact that I'm non-monogamous, Mark. I don't hide from the fact that I want to help 1,000 people develop that are going to be that are living a sexually liberated life. I want to help 1,000 of people have financial liberation by 2025. And I don't hide from that. And people then respect that. And that's something that in my non-monogamous experience that I started to realize that when I had confidence in my non-monogamous life, I'd go out to dinner for an evening with someone and I'd be able to talk about my non-monogamous life. Like for instance, if I'm out on a date for the night and we're sitting at a bar and there's other people sitting at the bar as well, and we strike up a conversation with the other people, and oftentimes I like to kind of do things to introduce this stuff. It says, oh, I'm here tonight with my date, and my girlfriend is back home tonight, staying home, or and I've got a girlfriend in another city as well, and that really it causes people to sit back and say what, and you're saying this in front of this person, and so it's like I'm not hiding anything, and people respect that. And I get people then they're curious and interested in how that works, and so it's kind of fun to do that. But it's being able to be authentic, and then congruency. Seeing that you are the same person from the inside out matters. That you're not what I used to call two-faced. You're not one person here and another person somewhere else, but you're just consistently the same person inside and out with people. And that's part of authenticity. And we mentioned predictability earlier, that people feel like that they know people as they trust you, if they have a relationship that they can trust you, they feel like that you are a predictable person to them. If they feel like that you are not predictable, then you start to lose that trust. So we're going to talk then about gaining trust in relationships. And we've mentioned this again already, but to be a trusting person is really key to this. And so that's part of your energy. And for some people, for probably half of you out there at least, that means that you got to start to shift your energy, your thoughts, and your feelings and your words, and make sure that they are more of trust than they are of distrust. I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with someone that, was talking about the he basically he's a skeptic, and he says, I'm probably just too skeptical to really listen to anybody who is trying to talk to me about how I could make a bunch of money doing things differently than what I'm doing now. And if you're putting out that again seed of skepticism, guess what? The universe is going to deliver to you proof that your skepticism was correct and that you were right in feeling that way, you were right in thinking that way. And it's the same thing about trust. That if you're putting out trust, the universe is going to deliver back to you examples and people and opportunities that are going to prove to you that your trust is a seed that you put out there, and you grew that seed and you got more trust in return, and you were right in trusting. But if you put out distrust, the universe is going to deliver the same thing as well. It's going to deliver distrust and showing you that you're right in not trusting. And so be a trusting person. And that is the energy that you put out, your words, your thoughts, and your feelings. And yes, they have to be authentic here first. And that's where oftentimes there's some reframing that we have to go through. And it's a process. Sometimes it can take weeks or months, and sometimes even a year to reframe the energy that we're putting out so that we can be a trusting person. And that's going to get me into next week's topic, because I will be talking about that next week, is how we can reframe our energy in order to build more trust in the relationships that we have and the relationships that we want. And so, second part of gaining trust in a relationship is show the other person that you are in it to help them have more of what they want. And see, going back to the transition of my monogamous marriage to non-monogamy, to having an open marriage, I had to show my wife that I'm in it to help her as well, not just me, but I'm in it to help her to have more of what she wanted. But I then had to figure that out too at the beginning, because I didn't have it figured out at the start, and I was just looking at what I wanted and then saying that she probably wanted the same thing. And boy, was I wrong on that at the beginning. But then what happened was that when she saw that how much satisfaction, pleasure, and how much it was really making a difference in my life by me having sex with other women, then she started thinking, who knows? Maybe I should try having sex with other men. And then she started opening up her mind to that. And that's part of this being authentic. If you are congruent and authentic and building trust in your relationships, and people see this in you, and they realize then, wow, for instance, you probably have some monogamous friends, and if you are authentic and if you are honest and you're building trust with them, and they then look at that and they think, well, this whole non-monogamy thing is really doing pretty good for you. I'm glad it is. Now it's their choice whether they want to ever be trying to be a non-monogamous person or not. But that's oftentimes where I get into conversations with people that I've been open for years about being non-monogamous and living my non-monogamous life. And I get in these conversations, and I regularly have these conversations, and finally someone says, I'd really kind of like to be able to go to a swingers party sometime and see what goes on at one of those, or maybe a house party sometime, or they may not be ready to take that big of a leap yet. They may be just saying, I'd really like to see what it's like going to a nude beach and experiencing a level of liberation is what we're talking about. Liberation comes in many levels, and sometimes you got to take small steps before you can take the big steps. And so, like with you transitioning your relationship, Maybe it's where your spouse just would go on a vacation to a nudist resort for a weekend. That was part of the liberation process of my wife and I moving from monogamy to non-monogamy. Is that we decided on a trip on a vacation trip to Palm Springs. We're living in Seattle at the time, and we regularly vacation in Palm Springs. And we decided to go to this clothing optional place, and just for a day, and just hang out. But there were naked people running around. But my wife didn't have to get naked. And at the end of the day, she says, if we go back there again, I think I'd probably get naked next time. Of course, I got naked. And so you're able to take in and open up these opportunities for yourself and for other people when you build these trusting relationships. So gaining trust in relationship, the last point down here, is that you must always be right. And what do I mean by that? Is that no, I put that in there as tongue in cheek. That if you're the kind of person that you must always be right, you're not going to gain trust. That's going to take and destroy trust for you. And so that's just going to head you the wrong direction. And so with that, then let's go the direction of talking about the weekly wrap-up report. And that is where I talk now about the transition that I'm going through, and that is that my overriding desire. I've got three overriding desires: to create an ongoing online passive income of $5,000 per month from 5 e-commerce stores, and then the second overriding desire that I have is to create an online non-monogamous lifestyles academy with 1,000 free members and 200 paid members. And then the third overriding desire is to create the ECNM Financial Liberation Club with 1,000 free members and 200 paid members. And so we're working on all of these things right now. And again, we've got a 5-year plan that we're working on. Just like when I went to transition my marriage from monogamy to non-monogamy, it was a 2-year plan. For me to earn my $5,000 per month, that's a 2-year plan. And it may not take that long, but if it takes 2 years to go ahead and complete that, then hey, then where would I have been otherwise? And I'll be able the kinds of things that I'm doing. Once I get to where I'm making $5,000 a month, it'll be just a month or two away until I'm making $10,000 a month. Once you're making $10,000 a month, it's less than a year, and you're making $20,000 a month. Now, can you say that you're able to double your income like that? And yet, I can. I know that's how this model that I'm following is going to work, and that's why I come here every week so that you can follow me and you can see and hold me accountable as to what really happens. And so this past week, then every week I have 3 goals, 3 things that I'm really going to work to accomplish. And every week I come here, and some weeks I find that I don't, but other weeks I find that I do. Now, get my desk cleared off was one of the things that I was going to accomplish last week, and I give myself a fail on that because I did not get that done until actually today. And so I got my desk cleaned off today, though. I got part of it done last week, part of it done the week before, but it did not get completed. And so I don't give myself a pass on that. But I eventually got it done. Get tubs emptied and put away. These are tubs of things that I have things stored in here at Chris's apartment, and I got those all cleared out. So I give myself a pass on that. Driving to California last week was one of my objectives, and no, and that's one of the things that I just had to realize that okay, I can really stress myself out. And sometimes we create the stress in our own lives. And I can create that stress or I can create an elf life. Easy, liberated, and fun. And I opted for the elf life. And so I talked to Chris. I says, well, hey, you have Monday off, which is Columbus Day. And so why don't I stick around until Tuesday, and I'll leave for California on Tuesday. And that way we can spend the weekend together and enjoy time together. And otherwise, I would have probably been shooting to leave last week on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday and been pushing myself and stressing out. But instead, I've had an easy and a liberated and fun time. over this past week. And so, yes, tomorrow then I'm driving to California. And so it's just a week later. And like I said earlier, a lot of things in my life, that I sometimes expect too much of myself too fast, too early, and so that it doesn't mean that they don't get done. It means that my desk is now cleaned off, the tubs got put away. It took me several weeks setting that goal, but it comes around and gets done. But I'm not going to create a life for myself anymore that like I used to. It's stressed out and not it's complicated. It's stressed out. It's not fun. It's hard. Oh, I've been through that too many years, and so I create a life that I truly love. And so I did, I ran out of time because Chris and I were making chocolate right before dinner, and so did not fill in all this about like my accomplishments this past week and my breakdowns and bottlenecks and breakthroughs. I'll just skip on through that and tell you about the three accomplishments so that I'm going to focus on for this week. One was to get my desk cleaned off. Well, I've already accomplished that. So, next week I'll be reporting that, yep, that was a pass. Two, driving to California. Well, I'm not in California yet, but I'm leaving tomorrow morning. And the third is to begin my screencasting webcam video journal. And that I want to start making a journal where I'm posting some things on my YouTube channel more often, and also posting in this group of business people that I'm accountable to as well. And so I'll post the same video both places, and it's really just kind of a journal of what's going on, what I'm doing now, and what I've been working on, what kinds of things I'm working on. And so that'll be a way that you can also keep track of the progress that I continue to make on a daily basis as well. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this is that my coach is actually taking and encouraging his students to do this, is to do a weekly video, or excuse me, do a video journal a couple times a week. And the reason for that, and this might be an idea for you, is that helps you to get comfortable and helps you to find your voice. It may not be something that you're necessarily all that comfortable with, and how do you end up sitting down here? Like now it's 9:07, so I've gone over my hour. And how do you end up sitting down and actually talking and putting some information out that is useful for people for a whole hour? And so the way you do that is you find your voice, and you just have to get started, and then you just have to do it. My little video journals will be very short, under 5 minutes, and so I'm going to do that a couple times a week. But I spent an afternoon last week on trying to figure out how to do use my webcam, and also then to do a screencasting video at the same time, where I mean, I got this live stream software that I use for YouTube, and that does this where I can put my picture on the screen along with the screen itself. But then I have some other software it's supposed to work as well, and it didn't work last week. I don't know why. But so anyway, I'm going to get that all fixed out, worked out this week, and so that I can begin to make my journals and have my video journals where it's going to be a screencasting and a webcam at the same time. And so that's the three things I'm working on. What three things are you working on this week? I hope that you will let me know on that, and you feel free to comment in the comment section. I thank you very much for joining me tonight, and let me just switch back over here to see if there's any comments, and no comments. So thank you for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Until next week, live to you again next Monday night. Goodbye.